Look, I cleaned the webcam especially for this festive live stream. Welcome everyone. Can you hear us all right? Blow a little raspberry if you can hear us. Hello, Sarah. And ahoy to you, Tanjiro. And hello, Martin. Good morning, Chris 65. Good day, Ambrose. I'm excited to read from the Longman Illustrated Dictionary of Geology. All these illustrations are real treat because you don't usually get so many bright colours inside the dictionary. Looking forward to learn some sedimentary structures, which is the place that I have landed us for our first peregrination in this. Bottom set beds. Horizontal strata at the bottom of sediments deposited in a delta. Foreset beds. Steeply sloping beds in sediments deposited in a delta. Washout. Noun. A gap in a bed that has been filled with later sediments. Formed when a stream flows across sediments soon after they have been deposited. The sediments in the course of the stream will then be removed and the space will later be filled by other material. Here's a picture of the washouts diagram. If that helps, because it is hard to describe visuals and words, isn't it? Convolute bedding. Sometimes get that in hotels, don't you? A structure in which the laminae of a sediment are bent into folds which are cut off by the beds above. Paleocurrent, now. A flow of water that took place at some time in the geological past while a sediment was being deposited. So that some of these have parts of speech indicated and some don't. That's inconsistent dictionary. Angular, adjective, with sharp edges and corners, showing little signs of wear. Subangular, adjective, with edges and corners, rounded off to some degree, showing signs of wear. Subrounded, adjective, with edges and corners rounded to smooth curves, but with the original shape of the grain still to be seen. Rounded, adjective, with edges and corners rounded to smooth curves. Well-rounded, adjective, worn to a completely smooth rounded shape without any sign of the original shape of the particle. Sedimentary structures. Structures formed while a sediment was being deposited or very soon after it was deposited. Swash marks. Patterns made in the sand of a beach by the movement of water after a wave has broken. These patterns are usually curved. Crescent marks. Marks formed by the washing away of water of the sediment around a pebble, a shell, or other object on the beach as the sea flows back after each wave. I've seen those. We've seen those. Rill marks. Branching patterns of small channels formed by water running down a beach. Mud cracks. A mud cracks, baby. The cracks produced when wet mud dries in the air. A pattern of many-sided cracks results, typical of dried-up shallow lakes. I'm glad this is soothing. If you're sick, you're allowed to fall asleep. So I'm gonna. Sediments has been nice. Should I carry on with sediments? Yeah, all right, I'm gonna. Compaction. Now, the process in which a sediment is reduced in volume by pressure, e.g. by the weight of material above it. Compact verb, compacted, adjective. Consolidation. Noun. The process of forming a solid mass from loose or liquid material, e.g. the formation of a firm rock from loose sediment. Unconsolidated. This is not an alphabetized list, by the way. Not consolidated or loose. Lithification. Now, the processes by which unconsolidated sediments become consolidated into rocks. Lithifaction, same as lithification. Induration. Noun, the process of making hard, e.g. by heat or by pressure. Indurate. Verb, indurated. Adjective. Cement. Noun, material between the particles of a sedimentary rock that holds them together. Cementation. Noun, the deposit of cement between the particles of a sediment to form a solid rock. Impregnation, noun. The filling in of the pore spaces in a rock by minerals or the replacement of pore material. Impregnation generally relates to an event that takes place after cementation. So if you're wondering about pore space, that's next. The space between the particles that make up a rock. Porosity, noun. The proportion of empty space in a rock. Porous, adjective, containing pore spaces. Diagenesis, noun. The changes in mineral composition and texture that take place in a sediment after it has been deposited, except those that occur at depth. Neptunian dike. There's a picture of one here. A sheet of sediment filling a crack in another rock, also known as sandstone dike. Clast, noun. A piece of a sedimentary rock formed by the breakup of a larger mass. Clastic, adjective, describes sediments made up of fragments produced by the breaking up of earlier rocks. Evaporite, noun. A sediment formed by the evaporation, i.e. the drying up, of a body of water containing a chemical compound in solution, e.g. salt deposits or gypsum. Terrigenous, adjective, applied to sediments deposited on the seabed that contain material that has come from the land. Orthochemical, adjective, refers to materials in sedimentary rocks that have been chemically precipitated within the area in which the rock was deposited and show no sign of having been transported after their deposition. Let's take a quick trip to structural geology, which looks like this. A lot of these diagrams remind me of when you see diagrams of the different kinds of blackheads you could have. Slide, noun. A fault that is nearly horizontal. A slide may be a thrust fault. Or a lag. Lag, noun. A thrust fault in which the uninverted limb of a recumbent fault has been cut out. Nap, noun. A large mass of rock that has been moved several kilometers or more. A nap may be either the hanging wall of an overthrust or a recumbent fold. I wonder over what time period the several kilometers or more has to count. Yeah, I reckon Neptune did just stab those pores into things. Ambrose, you're right. Imbricate structure. A structure in which reverse faults are formed between thrust planes that are more or less parallel. Décollement, noun. Unsticking. A series of beds may be folded and slide over a lower series that is little folded or not folded at all. This is a décollement, as illustrated here. It is necessary for there to be a bed at the base of the folded series that can slip easily over the rocks below, e.g. salt or anhydrite beds. Window, noun. An area in which the rocks above a thrust fault have been eroded to expose the rocks below. Fenster, noun. Window. Piercement dome. A salt dome in which the mass of salt has broken through the rocks above it and has reached or nearly reached the Earth's surface. Cryptoexplosion structure. A term used to describe more or less circular structures that show intense rock deformation but do not appear to have been caused by volcanic or tectonic activity. These structures range from 1.5 kilometers to more than 50 kilometers in diameter. They have evidently been formed by an explosive force, but the term cryptoexplosion structure does not imply any particular method of formation. See also astrobleem, which is right below. Astrobleem, noun. An ancient mark on the surface of the Earth produced by the fall of a large body from space. Astrobleems are usually circular, and the rocks show sign of great shock. We shall return to the Longman Dictionary of Geology at the end for more readings. I was rather... Oh, but the streak has asked to put an entry for reef. I mean, maybe there is, but this is not an alphabetized dictionary, so slightly harder to find. Okay, yes, reef, page 38. There is an index, thankfully. I'll give you reef. And then Martin can take a break. Reef, noun, a narrow ridge of rock at or near the surface of the water. Coral reef, a reef made up of corals or other organisms, a type of bioherm. Barrier reef, a long, narrow coral reef parallel to the shore and separated from it by a lagoon. So the back of this dictionary says, useful for finding the meaning of a word, finding related words, revising a subject area, finding a word whose meaning you know, finding a word to fit a meaning. More than a dictionary. I would say that implied it is a dictionary, literally what a dictionary is for. But I guess whoever designed this cover had aspirations to something else, but I think it should be very happy for being a dictionary.
So it's not alphabetized?
It's not.
Surely then it's not even a dictionary.
Words grouped by topic.
Is that a thing that dictionaries do?
Question for everyone. Is alphabetization an essential component of dictionary? You tell me. It's not a trick. I have assumptions, but now you ask, I actually don't know. Yes, Laura is asking the same question, Martin.
What's Staffordshire Reef?
The streak's got a gold reef.
What?
Yeah, there are reefs that aren't coral. As we learn, what a learning kind of day.
I thought Staffordshire was landlocked.
Maybe Staffordshire used to be under an ancient sea.
Well, that's probable. Everywhere was under an ancient sea, wasn't it?
Oh, it's in Victoria, Australia.
Oh yeah, there's a Ludlow in. It might be in. Is it in Victoria or New South Wales? But it's around.
Ludlow's not in Staffordshire, is it? It's in Shropshire.
No, it's close to where I grew up. I was just picking places close to me.
Yeah, but Australia's not close to where you grew up. Stop confusing people.
What are you talking about? I didn't say Australia was close to where I grew up. Ludlow is, and so is Staffordshire.
Sophie says, love the colourful background today. This is Martin's work nook, and he built these acoustic panels and covered them in colourful burlap.
Yeah, I've got another project I need to do. I need to build another screen.
Sea Level says, isn't a non-alphabetized definition book just a textbook? Yeah, maybe. I do think that, I mean, Roger's Thesaurus is a very confusing book to go to now if you're used to an alphabetized thesaurus, because it's more grouped by topic, whereas a dictionary style thesaurus, probably my pref. Rosalie says, just turn left for Australia, according to an old episode of Minder I saw once. I think if you keep going left enough, you'll probably get to Australia eventually if you're still alive. Which one's Minder?
Oh, it's
That's
the
not
one.
Dennis Waterman, is it?
Yeah, it's Dennis Waterman and some other dude. I can't remember. Does that have Chaz and Dave on the soundtrack? Did they write the theme song? I think Chaz and Dave might have written the theme song. Like, I'll Be Good to You, is that what it's called? I wasn't a big Minder person.
Yeah, Victoria's all over the place, Laura. That queen got a lot of stuff named after her. Unless it's named after a different Victoria, in which case, maybe slightly preferable. Welcome to people who have not been to one of these live streams before. Are there? I mean, I see a lot of our regular attendees, but do we have any noobs? If so, I'll get the hazing bucket. I never would. Ayabavon says, possibly it's a dictionary if it has word and definitions without other explanations, and it has the words in alphabetical order, but the alphabetical part could be the index. Yeah, I'm pleased they put in an index, because otherwise it'll be a fun read, but also easy to get lost. Oh, traction load. But then they could also just have put it in alphabetical order by subject, which they did sometimes. So I wonder if different people put this together, and some of them could be bothered with that shit, and some simply could not. You may.
Do you want to keep a page?
No. Yes, I'm afraid the hazing bucket, Grace. It's a bucket full of welcome packs, lanyards, mouse mat. Yeah, there's a tote. There's a very small spiral-bound notebook where you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to use this. The lining on it is, the lines are drawn in too dark.
I think notebooks is a very good starter pack element, but I'm really particular about my notebooks.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like the dwellers of the Allusioverse are also quite particular about their notebooks.
Have you had a chance to show the viewers some of these illustrations? I think they're really nice.
I did show them some. That is really nice. Show them this.
These ones. This is
that's a landscape.
Spread.
Closer. Closer.
No, don't do that. Well, I like both sides. I like the glacial moran that's happening on the other side.
This looks like a blue eclair resting in
Oh,
some
a
rock.
worm.
Yeah, or a gummy worm. Everyone's very excited about the bucket. Maybe I talked it up too much. Bucket. Hello, VP. Lovely to have you here. Hello, Shamim. Shamim is someone I've met in real life, although not for ages. Sophie, it may have some overlap with your high school geography textbook because it does say this is an ideal book for sixth formers, first year undergraduates, and for anyone who needs a better understanding of geological terminology. And it says it's got over 1,500 definitions in straightforward everyday language, which I'd say it's achieved pretty much. It very clearly cross-references all the things that it doesn't explain straight away.
I think this is more of a reference book or textbook.
Tyler, I know what you're talking about. Tyler has such a hard time with those tiny branded notebooks. I can't bring myself to toss them, and I don't ever use them. Yeah, sometimes
we've got like a whole. We'd have a cupboard full of them, but we don't know where to put them.
I found several dozen when I was packing to emigrate, and
it's always useful to have a notebook. You're like, oh, I need a notebook, but
not this one.
I just sort of, I guess, end up using my main notebook for everything now.
Also,
physics, diagrams, maths.
If it's lined, I don't really tend to use it.
Acoustic panel designs.
But if it's spiral bound, then I do try and rip out the spiral binding and recycle the pages, which is hard. It's hard to rip out the spiral binding.
You're very strong.
I'm not that strong. It has been so long, Shamim. Jennifer, I like graph paper. I like a dot, and what I have at the moment has 8 different types of novelty grids. Also, since we last met, Martin has this new friend, Lemon Drop.
Did you name them Lemon Drop?
Yeah, but it's your friend. Lemon Drop answers to you. What would you call it then?
No, I'm not saying it's not their name.
We're in the shop Daiso a couple of months ago, and Martin loves a bit of kawaii stuff, and he got very misty-eyed in the aisle full of plushies. So I had to go back and
it's really cute.
Bring one home for him.
Cute it is. Put him back. Give Lemon Drop a little space. Look at Lemon Drop. They're just like keeping an eye on my amp, making sure, and also acting as a little acoustic buffer, which is quite nice, absorbing the bass waves in the corner. Lemon Drop's very helpful.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Does Lemon Drop also check your levels and repair broken cables and things?
Well, they say that you should have something when you're tracking monologues and things. For a podcast, you should have something in your eyeline which is like a person that has eyes. Actually, I've got this in my eyeline. I don't have Lemon Drop in my eyeline because they're too big, but I have this right in front of me, so I can talk to Gudetama.
It's a Gudetama household.
Gudetama feels my pain.
Dan asks a good question. Is there a local school or non-profit who could use donated notebooks? In Britain, I did give ones that were unused and in good condition to charity shops because I figure someone could use them, maybe kids could use them. But yeah, wonderful question. We have a lot of little free libraries in Vancouver. I wonder if you could also pop a few good notebooks in there.
Yeah.
Lemon Drop and the sausage pillow don't mix. This town ain't big enough for the both of us.
Well, Lemon Drop wants to eat the sausage pillow. They think it looks delicious, and I have to keep on telling them you can't eat it. It's not for you. It's for me.
Observe this geological cardigan that I'm wearing today that also goes quite well with the palette of this book.
I love this cardigan. I think it's really nice.
Okay. Actually, we're quite complimentary paleted today, which doesn't happen much.
This is more like I've said this before. I feel like a sort of aging mafiosi don for me. What's that Forrest Whitaker movie called? Ghost Dog. I feel like I'm just the wrong age for this. Either you have to be 20 and super cool, or 60 and just in witness protection. But I really like it.
Rosalie, the new friends do not understand the sausage pillow chat, and that's the part of the mystery. If you just
just $5 a month, you can understand what's going on.
$2. It's cheap.
$2. That's good. Well, that's a bargain.
I think so. Or they could
I can't believe you're doing your Patreon memberships at such an affordable rate.
And you know what? You spend no money now. If you sign up, no payment is taken until the beginning of next month, which is not what Patreon advises, but it's what I do. so that you
So-
can see if you like it before you are condemned to payment.
So you're saying you could effectively get 11 days of the Illusioverse for free if you
Yeah.
sign up today?
You could watch all of the old live streams and then cancel your pledge on the 31st of January.
Why would you want to do either of those things?
Oh, that's cool, Kate. Kate says, when I travelled in 1980, I wrote a journal in a spiral notebook and ripped out the pages each week and mailed them home so that if I lost the journal, I wouldn't lose all of it.
That's a nice idea. That's a very sort of Amelie kind of thing, isn't it? I guess you're mailing it to yourself rather than to someone else, but it's really, really cool.
People are just accepting mentions of Sausage Pillow and moving on. Let's not dwell too much. Hello, Ermi Rose. That's super nice. Ermi Rose has joined the Patreon because this has been the perfect
Oh.
Saturday thing.
Wow.
And they want more of it, and they can get that every other Saturday.
Well, they're going to get another 40 minutes as well.
What are we doing next Saturday?
That's a great question. What are we doing next Saturday?
Is it our friend's birthday?
We're having a podcasters meetup.
Yes, we're having a podcasters meetup in a cafe in Vancouver in the morning. So if you are a podcaster in the Greater Vancouver area, or you know one,
Or a fledgling podcaster.
you're thinking maybe I
Potential
would. I haven't. Do I deserve to come? Yeah. Open to all who are podcast curious. Podcast doing.
Yeah.
It is free. It's Sunday morning in Staffordshire Reef, where the streakers
It's Sunday morning.
in Australia.
Oh,
Remember?
it's in Australia. Oh, yeah.
Remember we went through all that
it's
like
not
10
Sunday
minutes
morning,
ago.
It's 9 p.m. in Staffordshire. My parents live in Staffordshire, but they're not technically in Staffordshire.
They don't. They live
Wolverhampton is a
nearby.
municipal borough, so it's inside Staffordshire. But
Do we have any questions aside from ones about sausage pillows, which I will not be answering today? Do we have any questions for the 9th anniversary from me, for old Marty Mart here, for Lemon Drop, who is taciturn due to Lemon Drop's lack of mouth?
I can interpret.
Mm-hmm.
I speak plush.
Before something else that we had talked about a while ago in live streams is what you call like the sausage thing you put at the bottom of the door. We call them a draft excluder. I was just sewing one of those before.
Were you?
Yep.
Did you get the filling for it?
No, we've got to go to. So boring. How dare I come on our celebratory live stream and say such boring things?
This is useful intel.
I've delayed sewing us a draft excluder, even though it was minus 16 last week in Celsius, not like life points or something, because I wasn't sure what to put in it that would be heavy enough and moldable enough, because I didn't like the idea of buying little polystyrene beads. And people were like, put in rice, put in pulses, but those attract rats. So then yesterday I read, put in aquarium gravel. So now I just need to go to an aquarium shop, Martin.
Yeah.
Lovely amount of Antipodeans in the chat, although Antipodean is a very like other side of the world normative term, I guess. Any kind of collective terminology you prefer?
Not normative.
Oh, unique boggle editions, you say? Shit, I used to have a pen which had like a miniature boggle on the top.
Oh yeah.
Whatever happened to that? It was virtually unplayable, but still.
You can look at the chat in that window, and then you don't have to like loom at the listeners.
That's true. I'm just not
Yeah,
used to.
just want to say, like,
not used to this finery.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's
Uncooked tapioca balls, says Dan Engler. The rats do not do boba draft excluders, do they? Mine's going to go for polyfill. I might do a mixture, aquarium rocks and polyfill, but I'm making the draft excluder, trying to make it look like an eel, which I'm excited about. So I have like a little frilly fin on top, maybe one below. A slightly terrifying mouth.
But it keeps out the draft. That's amore.
I just wanted you to have to be the one
I
to
thought someone
land it.
Someone else would do it. I guess there's a delay on the thing, and that's why I didn't hear people singing.
Maybe they didn't want to interrupt because they're very polite. The Allusionauts are very polite people, Martin.
Yeah.
It's a good vibes only type of live stream. I was going to give people some spoilers as well for what's coming up, because the show is back next week after, I tried to not do...
There we got it. Oh, they're muted. Yeah, they are muted because it's a YouTube and not...
Oh, yeah. How cruel of me. An eel filled with aquarium rocks is perfect. In both times that Martin and I have been to Aotearoa, New Zealand, we have stopped off at a place in... is it Hoki-Tiki? Which maybe I've told you about before because I love it. And it's a sort of sanctuary they've got a couple of kiwi birds, but they also have about 18 elderly eels, which are the ones that don't breed, because when eels breed, they die. But they've got all these...
They're all ELSs.
They're all
ELFs.
female eels. Because male eels, if they don't breed, they die anyway. Their flesh poisons itself. Female eels can just go on living. So some of them are over 100. They don't exactly know how long, and they just get wrinklier. But last time we got to feed them, like we given sort of little tiny metal tongs and strips of liver. And
I think it was ox heart.
eels, whatever it was, eels are not very good at aiming at food. They don't have great eyesight, and I don't think they've got a particularly good sense of smell.
They claim that they do have an amazing sense of smell, but they still seem unable to get a piece of food that you're dangling just above them.
So they would sort of lunge and miss at the tweezer full of ox heart or liver, but they do have like quite eerie mouths, but ultimately not that effective. Ambrose read
females. Is that Dan saying females, which sounds a little bit like Ferengi describing fish?
Ambrose read a whole book on eels a few years ago. Please tell us more. Eels are so fascinating. Mayan is reminded that we still don't know how eels reproduce. We've not seen him
Rutting.
adult hugging.
Adult hugging.
Fun fact, says Grace too. The Maori word for eel is tuna. Whoa.
That's confusing.
Oh, spoilers. Neville says, spoilers, please. So I'm finally getting my arse in gear and making more podcasts. And Martin has been doing some good research into trying to find people to talk about how in the US they're going to rename all eponymous birds, which I think is
Any
great.
birds named after a person, they're like, yeah, we're going to get rid of that. Although
Good idea.
Well, without spoiling the episode too much, it's going to be a gradual process. They're going to trial it with a few birds first of all.
You said there are also a few that they're going to rename that aren't even eponymous.
Yeah,
they're like, opportunity knocks.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk about those, or do you want me to save it for the episode?
How much spoilers do you want? And also, is there too much bird chat on these live streams?
There's always a lot of bird chat on these live streams, actually. We've been having a lot of fun with our hummingbird feeder because it's been so cold here. And sugar water, at 4-to-1 ratio, the freezing point is about -3 Celsius, but it's been -13 Celsius overnight.
It was -16 overnight.
Was it really that cold?
Yes, it was. Okay, I think it was -13 in the day.
I don't think it was, but that's the problem.
For a hummingbird,
you can buy heaters, but they require mains power and have a power outlet outside. So Helen's made these little packs with rice that you
like a little hand warmer,
like a little glove,
so easy. You just make a little pouch, or you can just put raw rice into a sock and tie that up if you don't sew, and then you just microwave it for 30 or 40 seconds.
Yeah, and then you pop it in you kind of wrap the hummingbird feeder, which is like, if you haven't seen it, it's like a little dish that hangs.
So it looks like a UFO. Yeah,
and you can kind of hang an upside down woolly hat from it, which is what we did, and then put the rice inside the hat, and then it sort of keeps some reservoir of heat around the thing, and actually keeps the ice from the water from freezing, which mostly it worked. On the coldest days we had to bring it in, and we brought it in at night, but generally we were a source of sweet sustenance for our visiting hummingbirds.
Yeah,
over the
very proud.
Very cold and very snowy week in Vancouver, so that was a real high point.
Other spoilers is that we've got 3 returning Alumsionists coming up. I think this will happen in the episode due out next week, which so Elaine Louis, the gossip columnist, who was in the episode about gossip all the way back in early 2019, and she was sort of talking about the philosophy of it and how people don't, people dismiss it because it's associated with women and stuff, and she's like, politics kind of runs on it, and I also found some very interesting etymology of the word. So go back and listen to it if you've not heard that. She's coming back to talk about. I don't know if you lot have noticed the fact that lip reading has been in the news the last couple of weeks because of celebrity gossip and shit with the Golden Globes. So she's been talking about that, and then on Monday morning, hopefully, I'm talking to you, or I'm typing in text because I think this person is deaf or hard of hearing, and they will be talking about being a lip reading teacher. And then hopefully I can get that together for Thursday and release an episode about lip reading. Grace, I have been known to wheel out the term Allusionist before, and I do love portmanteaus. People assume I hate them. No, I love them, which is what makes the bad ones so much more painful. Tyler, it depends where you live they have non-migratory hummingbirds, because in Vancouver we do have a couple of non-migratory hummingbirds. So if you do have some that stick around, then please put your hummingbird feeders back, because your hummingbirds may not have travelled south in the winter.
Yeah, I heard that part of the reason that they don't travel is that there's the availability of food because of hummingbird feeders. I don't know whether that's true, but that's definitely something that I've heard. So now that we've sort of uncorked the human intervention bottle, we have to keep feeding them sweet sugar water.
Laura, it does seem hard for a hummingbird to overwinter in Vancouver. They've chosen a hard life. It's not usually like super cold here compared to the rest of Canada, but they do rely on human help. Sophie asks, how long does that last until you have to microwave it again? I assume the little rice packs.
It depends how cold it is.
I mean, it got cold outside because it was outside, but it would keep things defrosted, and then a couple of hours later, I'd microwave it again and put it back in there, and that would keep it going for the rest of the day. Yeah. Rosalie visited the Big Pigeon yesterday. Apropos of bird chat, where is that, Rosalie? Is that close to Adelaide?
Must be close to Adelaide, mustn't it?
People here have missed the Golden Globe gossip. Well, I tried to explain it to Martin, and I felt
they did quite good job.
I felt very trivial, and both very young and very old at the same time.
I thought you did a good job explaining it.
Well, Selena Gomez and Taylor Swift and Timothée Chalamet and Kylie Jenner. Anyway, it's a bit of chaos, but I thought Lainey was very interesting talking about kind of the philosophy of those kinds of stories, and I'm really keen to learn about lip reading from the lip reading teacher, who's also called Helen. And I understand also that even for lip reading experts, it is about 30 to 40% accurate. So don't know if we can trust the amateur lip readers of the internet doing a gossip. Hello, Enki. Greetings. Oh, Rundle Mall in Adelaide is where the Big Pigeon is. Cool. John Lewis says, the birds hang out in my garden, but don't seem to touch the food I put out for them, so they must just like it there.
It's good vibes.
Yeah, they ask for nothing except just the hang. Okay, so that's Alumsionist number 1. Number 2 is Ishbel McFarlane, who talked about the Scots language on the Scots episode, which I think was from 2018. Has she been on again as well? Maybe. Anyway, she was running a workshop recently that she recorded some stuff at about flighting, which was a 17th century form of Scots battle rap. So I'm excited to learn more about that.
That's wild.
Yeah, and people could say stuff in flighting that you absolutely would not say in polite conversation or even rude conversation. So I think that would be cool. I think lip readers had kind of a shit time during COVID masking for the most part, Mayan. Real pickle.
Okay.
And then the third Alumsionist, she will be back, I think, in March. It's Caroline Crampton, who does She Done It podcast. I actually recorded with her this week as well, because I don't know if I'm allowed to say what I recorded about, but it's something for She Done It. But she is about to publish a book about hypochondria, which is like it's a beautiful book. It's incredible, and the Word has had a very interesting passage. So I'm excited to talk to her about that. So she will be on in a couple of months. So that's what's happening so far. Bird renaming, lip reading. I've got to write a song for Leap Day for a festival we're doing on Leap Day. I'm excited about that. I can hear it in my head, but I haven't done all the research yet.
Oh, yeah, we need to write that, don't we?
Oh, that's an etymological thing I learned this week, that leap days were called embolisms, which I thought scary. And but the embolism, as in the medical term, comes from the leap day word. Inky asks, do you get special gifts or acknowledgements for Alumsionists? No, just abuse their goodwill. But it's nice when I can do things for them too. And in Caroline's case, she gets to promote her upcoming book. And Lainey will get to plug her newish Substack. Sophie says, fun fact, I learned about flighting in AC Valhalla. What does it mean?
Oh, Assassin's Creed.
Ah, thank you.
I didn't know there was... Okay, that's interesting. Maybe I should play that for research. That's tax deductible, right?
Laura used to watch Sue Thomas, FBI, about a lip reading agent. It was not the best TV, but was comfortingly formulaic, and the character always got it right. What else? Ukulele covers. We were not talking about Veronica Mars. I don't think Caroline has indulged in Veronica Mars, despite Veronica Mars being a very interesting detective show. Maybe she'll get to it eventually.
I think Caroline's really golden age, isn't she? I remember we were talking to her about what did we just watch? The Long Goodbye, and
the 1970s adaptation of a Raymond Chandler novel starring Elliot Gould.
So I'm not interested in Raymond Chandler.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. It's a very different kind of writing, isn't it?
Neville's
It's a very different world.
Neville says, hypochondria. Hope I don't have that. Dad. I'm just trying to catch up on the chat. Oh, bad lip reading series. Sounds fun. Ambrose watched Long Goodbye. Quite strange, I found it. So I read that
It's quite strange. I found it too.
They had a little strange time adapting it because it's a novel from, is it the 40s or 50s? And they were like, we don't really want to make a period piece, but it also doesn't work in early 1970s. So we're just going to make this character kind of anachronistic around the people that he's with. And so, like, he's the only one that smokes because early 70s LA apparently did not smoke, too health conscious.
What I'd say about it is there is
health conscious, but for Coke. Sorry, Karen.
That's a health food. I would say about it is that there is a sort of shockingly violent moment. It's not gory, but it is quite unpleasant. Apart from that, it's a very interesting movie, and there's some quite sort of tense situations, but mostly it's quite fun. But that moment in the film is very, very strange.
It's a Jewish gangster villain.
No, but that's historical, isn't it? There's a Bugsy Siegel who's the famous gangster.
I don't know about my people's gangsters history.
Yeah.
Tanchira loves the chaos of these live streams. I wonder if anyone else does. Are any of the new people still here? Helen from Sweden, under the alias Ukulele Covers here, says, I will continue my one-person campaign for more Helen Zaltzman, Jenny Owen Young's VMI content. I would love to do more stuff with Jenny. She's a very busy Jenny. But I'm available for Jenny anytime. Jenny time.
Amber says the one thing I loved was the trick with the song reused in all the contexts. So in The Long Goodbye, there's a song called The Long Goodbye that was written for the film, and there's like, I would say like 7 or 8 different versions, instrumentals, sort of lounge versions, different singers, different tempos, maybe like a Mexican version. I don't think the song is all that exceptional, but it is kind of interesting that in this universe, the song The Long Goodbye is such a big hit that it's been covered like 50 times. Because I very much viewed it as diegetic, like playing on the radio, and like all these people are like, we're going to get a piece of The Long Goodbye. It's such a big hit. I quite like that. That tells you you're in a parallel universe.
Pleased to see all the Jenny Owen Young's enthusiasm in the chat. She deserves it just as much as you would hope. And also, if any of you are in, well, she's playing a gig in Manchester, the British version, right around now, but she's doing a gig in Glasgow tomorrow supporting milk carton kids, and Dublin, I think, the next day. No, wait. Yes, it's Glasgow, then Dublin. Dublin might be sold out, but there's waitlist. And then on the 23rd, she's playing at an Americana festival in Hackney in London. So if you can go, I'd recommend. Wouldn't you? Recommend going to see Jenny Owen Young's in concert?
Yeah, I don't know what the milk carton kids are like. I haven't listened to them.
She says they rip on stage. That was how she described it to me this morning.
That's great.
Rip. I think not like let rip, like farting.
It's not that kind of show.
No, I think it's a fun musical show. What are you all doing this weekend, aside from meeting us here, which is very nice of you? Tell us more. Tell us what your yarn-based makes are. Okay, Martin, you suddenly look like you're having a bit of existential abyss.
I'm good. What was I thinking about? Just staying in space.
You've got this like big swivel chair. When you're taking business calls, do you ever like sit there with Lemon Drop, just like stroking them like a villain cat?
It's got arms. I got this chair because it's got arms, so it's quite comfortable. But then you can just flip them up when you're playing guitar, which is quite useful. But it just like if you leave it in the room, it just looks like the chair's like going like this the whole time. Like it's part of a stick up. So that can be quite upsetting when you walk in the room.
Rosalie, I'm very happy you don't have to do any hospital visits as inhabitant or visitor for a little bit. Ooh, Ambrose is decompressing from the announcement of a puzzle setting contest results. How did you fare? Neville, is this something you are familiar with as well? Tell us more. Oh, Shamim has tried to needle felt a fossa during this, but it's too much multitasking. Intrigue. Neville's bought a house. Congrats. Mark, sorry about your bad cold and the fact you don't want the knitting to become imbued with disease. Marty also had a bad cold.
Yeah, first week. Well, as soon as I got back, I probably got on the plane or something like that. It's a kind of a novelty to have a cold in this day and age. I think I did have one once since 2020, and COVID twice. But yeah,
John Lewis
cold suck.
has got to go shopping for a new bike, having worn out their old bike. Incredible. Ermi Rose says, way off topic, but have you seen the Agatha Christie adaptation called Hurson, based on the characters written by Ariadne Oliver, written by Agatha Christie? I would be intrigued,
That's
but
funny.
I think I've only seen Hurson. Where is it available? I know I've seen it on a streamer and possibly a plain seatback.
Presumably, like, there's no existing plot. Oh, well, one of my favorite things. Okay, this is a real like inside baseball thing, but one of my favorite things about there's an episode of Poirot where one of the characters is reading an Ariadne Oliver book. Is like a doorman or something like that, and the book is called "Watch Out, Lady, Don't Fall Backwards," which is the mystery novel, which is the central mystery of a Tony Hancock episode in Hancock's Half Hour, where he's desperately trying to find out who did it because the final page of the book is missing. I was just like, that's a nice little Easter egg for British comedy nerds.
Grace is going to visit Zealandia today. It's a bird sanctuary in Wellington, Aotearoa, New Zealand, which I'm surprised we have not been to Zealandia, but I suppose last time we went, there was like historic flood rain, so not the best time for bird sanctuary.
Yeah, we went to Weta instead. We saw some CGI birds and a warthog.
Ambrose's puzzle was not in the top 10 out of 25. I'm sure it was good though. Puzzle setting seems
settings really hard. Getting the difficulty right must be very, very difficult.
Isn't your band name Pale Bird based on a crossword clue that you composed for a friend?
It might be. I can possibly come it.
I think the nice people of the live stream might be a little disappointed in you if they knew the cryptic origins.
It's just funny what stupid things stick in your brain. Terrible jokes.
Terrible. People are having all sorts of busy weekends, making cookies. Whoa, it was a student recital in Laura's living room in 2.5 hours. Used to have little gigs in our old flat, Martin. That was nice.
Yeah, I did that sometimes. I had some nice people playing. Did Martin White play one of those gigs?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Gavin Osborne.
Ben Parker from Superman Revenge Squad.
You say from, but that is like it's a one-man band, isn't it?
Well, I think he played with a band sometimes. He's back with a new band. Best Unbeaten Brother. Who else did it? I can't remember. Samantha Waits. All the big hitters.
C. Lovell is sewing for an event, the vending act. That's cool. What are you sewing? Or is it secret? Yes, we will be watching Great Pottery Throwdown tomorrow. It's nice to watch it with you. Tomorrow they're making Staffordshire flatbacks, Martin, since you're from the West Midlands, which is the Staffordshire they're referring to, not the one where the streak is. Do you know what a Staffordshire flatback is?
Is it like a pancake, but you put in more flour and maybe you add raisins?
No. Why would they make that in pottery?
Because they're hungry. I don't know, like it's a busy job.
You can't eat it.
You can eat it.
The pottery.
Oh, no, can't eat pottery.
No, it's a figurine that is meant to go on the mantelpiece, so it has a flat back so that it tessellates.
Got you.
And they often are like quite creepy faces and like a lot of frills and stuff.
Like your friend Tommy.
Our friend Tommy does have a head that perfectly tessellates with the wall.
When he does that, it's sort of...
Oh, Steve, yes, I mentioned a podcast. I think you said it was She Done It. Can't find it. Do I have the name right? Who's the host? The host is Caroline Crampton, and it's spelled She Done It. SHEDUNNIT, like Who Done It, but She Done It because it's about female authors. Sarah has. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Chanchira. It is spelled She Done It like that, because it's mostly about female authors of Golden Age detective fiction. And it's an interesting, pretty relaxing read. Okay, Odyssey's been escaping the heat. Yes. High summer there for all of our bird feeders freezing over chat.
Oh, yeah.
Not the case for everyone.
True that.
What else? So you want to go and buy timber after this, and I want to get aquarium gravel. And then
go.
Then a friend is having a little event on a beach, and so I guess we'll go and get coal.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I'm not quite sure what it's meant to be. They asked us to bring something to burn, which I don't know if that's like practical or spiritual.
Like, is it something we want to divest of, or it's just something to fuel a fire?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my question.
Mm.
So
Should have asked them more questions while there was time.
Yeah. Well, it's let's just roll the dice, I guess.
We could take some of our paper recycling.
Oh, that's a good idea. That won't last very long, but it's good to start a fire, isn't it?
It's useful for kindling.
Mm.
Yeah, people are having very handy times. And bring a book you only slightly dislike. Bring some corporate notebooks from conferences that we're not going to use because the lines are too strong.
There's so much work that's gone into turning something that's purely as I was going to say, purely a fuel source into something which has form, but obviously trees are more than purely a fuel source. But I feel bad with the amount of effort that's gone from those raw materials to making something that's like a book or a notebook. I don't think I'd want to undo all of that entropy minimizing activity.
When was it? Was it Second World War that people would chop up pianos for firewood?
Yeah, my mum claimed that when her parents moved house, they chopped the piano for firewood. I was just like, oh my, they did what?
Charred lemon drop? How dare you, Dan?
No, I don't think
Melissa.
Lemon drop's not going to burn. They're some kind of a dragon, I think. Possibly a dinosaur, but they might, I think they're fireproof.
Yeah, outrageous.
Chopped sausage puller, interesting.
Yeah,
a little bit in my art.
Ukulele covers. I would err on the side of caution and bring a log and then pretend it has spiritual meaning if required. We could draw a little face on the log and then pretend it was an enemy.
Yeah, okay.
Or a phoenix.
I don't know where we get a phoenix.
No, a log. You just pretend the log is a phoenix.
Okay.
Yeah, not much support for burning lemon drop. Wrong crowd, Dan. What is the difference between a dragon or a punk chicken?
That's a great question.
Is it in attitude rather than form?
Yeah, someone said earlier. He was saying earlier that lemon drop is like a relative of the hummingbirds, which is probably correct.
It works. Ermi Rose, lovely to have you join us. Thank you very much. Thank you for tolerating the insight into hummingbird warming and so forth.
DIY.
Yeah. What else have you learned about? You've been doing this bird research for me, kindly.
Oh yeah. Did you want to know about the 3 birds that got renamed?
I'll say. But do you want to wait and learn about them at some undetermined time in the future? Oh, Martin and I were also both guests at separate times on some friends' podcasts.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Called Pop This, which is a pop culture podcast, and I can't remember why, but we were both called in to talk about golden era Gwyneth Paltrow films. I would say Gwyneth Paltrow's golden era was from Emma in like 1996 to whenever Roll Tenenbaums was 2001.
I thought she was
That's basically her best role.
Yes.
But I was doing a real non-golden film, which was Duets. I think I might be the only person alive to have seen Duets 3 times.
Maybe the editor.
I'm not sure. It is Gwyneth Paltrow's father, Bruce Paltrow's final film.
He was ill, wasn't he?
He was going through cancer treatment at the time of making it. And it is a film about karaoke competitions. For the title being Duets, there are not many duets that take place. Not even that much karaoke, although there is a really good scene with Paul Giamatti and Andre Braugher. And it's a really odd film because Gwyneth Paltrow is playing this character who is sort of presented as like very sexualized in her mode of dress, but very infantile in the way that she talks and behaves.
That's not the worst thing about that film.
I'm not saying it's the worst. I'm just saying it's a body swap film. It's a body swap.
I was just not watching it.
Yes, it's poor, but the podcast is quite interesting. And then Martin, Dan was just mid Martin's episode when the live stream started. Martin was talking about sliding doors, which none of the hosts of the show had seen, but was a big deal if you were in Britain in 1998.
Dan's saying I shockingly complimented Gwyneth Paltrow's accent. I think Gwyneth Paltrow's accent is great in that film.
She does do a pretty good job, yeah.
One thing I'd like to apologise for is we have a discussion at the beginning of that podcast where we're talking about how miserable January is, and is there a celebration we could have in the middle of January? And I said, well, we picked the January the 15th as an arbitrary date, and I looked around and I couldn't find much information about January the 15th. And I suggested we name it Skrillexmas, because that's Skrillex's birthday. Now, if you grew up in North America, you probably know that January 15th is Martin Luther King Day, which I did not know. And I am mortified that I placed the admittedly admirable Skrillex on a pedestal above MLK. So
You didn't bother to read the whole Wikipedia
I
entry. to tell me
didn't.
the
I was on the
15th.
spot. I was scrolling quickly.
Lazy Martin.
I couldn't be
also.
like, can you just pause the podcast for 5 minutes while I do my research? But none of them. I mean, they didn't mention it either. I mean, really, it's a Canadian podcast and not a US podcast, so I can see why it would have escaped their notice. But if you listen to the podcast and I'm like, well, there's nothing important on January the 15th, and you're screaming at me, I apologize, because you should be screaming at me. That's really embarrassing. I'm very embarrassed by that. But I'm not embarrassed by Gwyneth Paltrow's British accent. I think it's really good.
You also said that her boyfriend in the film was British, but I think he's Irish.
I think it's ambiguous, but I don't mind. I don't think that's an important part of his character.
Oh, Shamim says it's not always celebrated on the 15th.
Well, it was this year, right? I think that was the thing.
Okay.
So yeah.
Third Monday of January. All right. Maybe you can rest easier.
I mean, I still got it wrong, but thanks for the support.
Yeah, but Sliding Doors we rewatched for the purposes of this, and it had held up surprisingly well. Like, I remember enjoying it with caveats, maybe about 3.5 stars with when I first saw it when it came out, and I enjoyed it about the same amount with the same caveats, possibly a couple of extra ones.
I liked it more because in my memory, I watched it when it came out. I haven't seen it since. I was like, every time John Hannah starts quoting Monty Python at length, and everyone laughs and cheers and joins in, and that's the basis of their social engagement. I maybe want to throw up.
It's pretty hard.
It's hard. It's like that's not what British people are like. We're not that bad. We're bad in many ways.
Even in the late 90s.
Like, you'd just be embarrassed if a friend started like quoting a whole scene. But that's not that much of the movie. I thought that was more the movie than I remembered it being.
No, but it's the fact that it's...
I remembered it being more of the movie.
You know that it's a universe in which that behaviour is not only encouraged, but praised.
Yeah.
And that's a hard universe to be in.
That's true. But apart from that, it wasn't too bad. And there's a bunch of stuff where, we've talked about stuff from the 90s. You can be watching a perfectly normal rom-com, like duets, arguably.
No, that's not a rom-com or normal.
Is it? Because I think it is a rom-com.
No, because it's not a comedy. It's meant to be like a kind of...
Is it? What
thriller.
tone are they going for? And then something really horrible can happen, or the characters can say something really phobic, or like homophobic, or transphobic, and you're just like, oh, okay, I just thought this was a normal thing, and it's turned horrible. Yeah, like Love Actually does that a lot. So, Sliding Doors, I don't think does that very much.
Not.
There's a couple of things there's a couple of pieces of language that people say that I'm like, yeah,
for the era,
we don't use that word anymore. But there's there's not a lot of like, women calling love rivals fat, which is like a big thing at the time, isn't it?
Well, there's no fatties in Sliding Doors.
Well, yes,
no fatties allowed on
there's
screen.
no fatties in Bridget Jones, and she's still anyway. There's less of that than I was worried there might be.
Yes. Well done, Sliding Doors.
It's a really intriguing film. I really like it.
It's also available for free on, is it Tubi? We found it for free on one of our streaming services. Yeah. So if you want a little trip to the past,
or Roku, I don't know,
you could do worse. Ukulele Cover says, you're making a really impassioned case for us to go watch Sliding Doors.
I really like it. I enjoyed it more. Like I said, I enjoyed it more the second time. I think it's good fun. There was a couple of I guess there's a couple of content warnings for death and miscarriage. But if you're okay with that, then otherwise it's really fun. And those are small parts of the story.
Tantira, I think the Gwyneth of 1998 was so different to the Gwyneth of now.
Watch along.
I think probably what they have in common is a certain like very studied and calculated casualness, which then was just sort of like the 90s Gen X thing, where it's like, oh, this old thing, I just threw it on with like my dressing gown over the top. But now it's like, oh, this, I mean, it's like really no effort to have a $15,000 facial and then go and see your bullshit doctor. I mean, it's just like just I suppose, the kind of ennui that she feigns despite having a very kind of high effort life. But yeah, very different Gwyneth. What happens to you that doesn't watch Sliding Doors? You don't want to know.
That's not how Sliding Doors works. Sliding Doors is a decision that she doesn't make. It's an inconsequential, tiny difference that she has no control over.
It's a decision someone else makes.
Yeah, the reason she's delayed is there's a kid in her path when she's coming down the stairs to get her train, and either the mother, I think it's the mother, or the parent brings her to one side, the child to one side, or doesn't, and that's what delays her or doesn't delay her. She has no control. It's not a small, important decision that she makes, and in fact, arguably, with some caveats, her life sort of ends up similar in certain ways anyway, regardless of the path that she takes. But it's not her choice, and she doesn't know that it's happened.
In a way, it's a very fatalistic film.
Well, it's about, I guess, not stressing out about every tiny decision, because there are tiny decisions that have huge impacts you don't have control over. So just vibe with it, man.
Yeah.
Vibe with it.
And in fact, the true sliding doors moment isn't really the sliding doors moment. It's one that takes place before the start of the film.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, the vodka.
Yeah.
Kind of. But that's not a sliding doors moment, because she's got control of that.
You don't see that film version of what happens if she hadn't like borrowed booze from work and got fired over it.
Well, I think the thesis is that she's at a moment of a huge change anyway. And at that point, where there's already a lot of chaos and tumult in her life, a very small thing can have a big impact, whereas that very small delay might not have had any kind of impact on any other day.
Okay, in the chat,
It's great.
They're suggesting maybe this is leading to you starting your own sliding doors podcast, door by door. Unless
I talk about quantum physics on the podcast as well.
Yes, but you could make quantum physics accessible via the medium of sliding doors.
Yeah.
Unless Rosalie says he makes a very inconsequential decision that means he ends up not making the podcast, which is currently the timeline we're in.
We'll see.
We'll see. We have like 4 minutes left together. Should we return to the Longman Illustrated Dictionary of Geology? I've opened it to the paleontology invertebrates page with all these pictures. Crinoidea, noun, plural. The crinoids, a class of the Echinodermata. The crinoidea include the modern sea lilies. Some crinoids are sessile, which is a term on page 101. Let's find out. Sessile describes an organism that is closely attached to a surface, such as the seafloor or another organism. Some crinoids are sessile, others swim freely. The fixed crinoids have a stem like a flower with a cup, called the calyx at the top. Crinoids are important as index fossils. Let's find out what one of those is. Index fossil equals zone fossil. I mean, thanks a fucking bunch, but zone fossil, a fossil species that is chosen as characteristic of those that are present in a particular stratum. The name of the zone fossil is given to the zone. The zone fossil should be found only in the stratum that is named after it. There's a picture of a crinoid. Ambrose says, I remember crinoids being the monster in a Doctor Who episode. Did they look like this crinoid? Cephalopods, noun, plural, a class of the mollusca. The cephalopoda have a shell that is divided into separate parts called chambers by walls called septa, singular septum. All cephalopods are marine. Nautiloidea, the nautiloids, a subclass of the cephalopoda. They have shells that are shaped like a long cone, which might be straight or curved. The septa that divide up the shell are gently curved where they meet the shell, and there is a tube called the siphuncle that runs through the shell, passing through the centers of the septa. Nice. Okay. Now we're on plate tectonics with this fetching picture of previous iterations of the continents. Paleogeography, noun, the study of the geography of past geological ages, and especially of the positions of former continents and oceans. This is done by studying rocks of known ages to discover the environments in which they were formed and the directions in which the rivers and the ocean currents were flowing at the time. The information is then put together, usually in the form of a paleogeographical map. Gondwanaland, noun, the supercontinent that is thought to have existed in the southern hemisphere until the Cretaceous. It consisted of South America, Africa, Arabia, Madagascar, India, Sri Lanka, Australia, New Zealand, and Antarctica. Laurasia, the supercontinent that is thought to have existed in the Northern Hemisphere at some time before the Tertiary. The Tertiary being on page 115, where I was not. Tertiary is the sub-era between the Cainozoic era and the Quaternary sub-era, ranging from 65 million years ago to 2 million years ago. That's a big range. Okay. So Laurasia consisted of North America, Greenland, and Eurasia. So here's Laurasia and here's Gondwanaland. Pangaea. Noun. The supercontinent formed by Gondwanaland and Laurasia together. Pangaea began to break up around 200 ma ago in the Jurassic. Continental accretion. The growth of continents by adding material to their margins. The central parts of the continents are very old, Precambrian. Younger rocks have, it is thought, been added to these central parts by accretion during mountain building periods, when the original continents have come together as a result of plate movements. Tethys, noun. The ocean that is thought to have existed between the eastern ends of Gondwanaland and Laurasia. Gondwanaland moved south. The Tethys Sea was formed when Gondwanaland moved south between 340 and 225 ma ago. The eastern end of the Tethys Sea was closed in the Tertiary, leaving the present Mediterranean Sea between Europe and Africa. Polar wonder. When the paleomagnetism of rocks of various ages is studied and their directions of magnetization are measured, the positions of the Earth's magnetic poles, as shown by the magnetism of the older rocks, are not close to the Earth's geographical poles. Lines called polar wandering curves can be drawn on maps to show the apparent movements of the poles in the geological past. The apparent movement of the poles can be explained by movements of the continents, and this explanation fits in with the theory of continental drift. And here's a picture of polar wandering to see us off with. And they're managing to talk about Little Shop of Horrors in the chat. Yeah, Seymour is the man, Audrey 2 is the plant, Audrey 1 is Seymour's human love interest. Thank you all so very much for joining us. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Lemon Drop. And we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Hard to say because we have a friend coming to visit, but we're not sure when. We're going to try. Rosalie says, gorgeous music, Martin. Thank you for the Allusioversary wishes, much appreciated. And thank you all for joining me upon this many years long journey. Who knows how many more years? Maybe like 65 million. And I will have drifted surprisingly unfar. Who can say?